there's not a lot out there to educate doctors, especially young grads, about locum tenens. And so you just have to pick up scraps wherever you can find them.
And in medicine in general, it was always kind of like very limited paths.
Emergency medicine is probably one of the most highest burnout rate.
Right.
If I can just show them that there is something different, like they can live a good life, make a good income, but also do the emergency medicine thing that they love, their passion, but also explore things outside of that they really enjoy and have some control over that.
The hardest part of doing locums out of residency is just that you're not credentialed yet.
I think one of the key things that physicians feel is trapped.
Yeah, that's why I crave the autonomy so bad. You should have the ability to put your priorities first, whether that's family or something else, when you need to.
All right, guys. Well, welcome to the Top Doc Podcast. I'm your host, Ali Chaudhry, and I have here Dr. Ghorbani, who is an amazing physician that works with us at Locums United. And so welcome, Dr. Ghorbani.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. So, today the idea is to kind of talk about her journey as it relates to Locum Tenens. And you're a recent grad. Mm-hmm. Tell me when you graduated.
Graduated June of 2024.
Okay.
So it's been like maybe 9 months ago.
Okay, so you're a baby attending.
Yes, very much a baby attending.
Awesome. And you've kind of taken I wouldn't say it's unique anymore, but it is somewhat novel to a lot of physicians who are graduating residency, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you walk us through why you decided to do locum tenens from the outset and what kind of got you started thinking about that in the first place?
It was something I really had no idea like what it was or what it entailed when I first went into residency. And then by third year, all my co-residents were getting all these full-time W-2 jobs, and I kept looking into it and I was like, well, I don't know about this place or I don't know about this place. And in the end, it just didn't really align with my values. And for me, that was mostly about my autonomy. And
so the full-time jobs that you were looking into kind of just didn't really fit in with what you wanted your lifestyle to look like. Is that right?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And it's also, it's kind of hard to pin down exactly where you want to be because every place is going to be different.
It's a big commitment, right?
Because
you could be making a decision and being stuck in a situation where you don't like it. Maybe the volume's too crazy or the coverage isn't that good or other issues, right? Okay.
Yeah, so you never know. It's like you'll sign a contract and you go in there, you're like, oh, this is actually like this.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, I think I was kind of looking around and then I kind of heard trailings of locums, and then I actually met you at the AEM conference last
12 months
year.
ago. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I think that ultimately gave me the confidence to go into it because I was like, well, no one else is doing this and no one else really can give me a lot of information about it. And so
there's not a lot out there to educate doctors, especially young grads, about locum tenens. Would you agree?
Totally. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you just have to pick up scraps for wherever you can find them. Like maybe, I guess just what you've heard, maybe on some Facebook groups and things like that, right? And just
it
kind
was
of
all word of mouth. I just had to
stuff.
go out there and like put myself out there and be like, is anyone out there to tell me what I should be doing to get into this?
So tell me, what did your and we don't have to talk about the program specifically if you don't want to, but what did your colleagues think about your decision to go into locums as opposed to taking a traditional W-2 job out of an academic sort of resident setting,
My co-residents at the very least were, I think, kind of a little shocked, I say, just because at my residency, particularly, no one goes into locums.
So academics, no one does locums.
Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of probably diametrically opposed, I would say, in a sense, right? I mean, they get paid significantly, almost 50 to 70% lower than a locum doctor would.
Oh, yeah.
But they have other benefits apparently. But anyway, so my point is that they are even further removed, I think, than a regular W-2 employee from locums. So that's, I think, why a lot of us, and myself included, we have little to no exposure to locums when we get out or doing training. And doing residency, you're kind of just focusing on, obviously, solidifying your practice, right? Making sure that you're solid when you get out. But then after that, the only thing that you have to think about is, okay, do I want to work with which CMG do I want to work with?
Right.
Or do I want to go into an academic setting again, right? That's kind of like the conversation. Locums doesn't enter the conversation ever.
Yeah, no. And in medicine in general, it was always kind of like very limited paths that you could take. And so they're like, well, you have this or this. And so that's kind of the way you go about it.
It's like a new specialty within medicine. Isn't
Exactly.
it? It's kind of it's like a new specialty that we just found because people don't really know much about it.
Right.
Kind of like, I guess, PM&R or something. Like there's some these sort of really mysterious
the
specialties
curriculum.
that are like actually really cool, but not many people know about, right? And so locum tenens is kind of I think in a sense it's analogous to that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so how was your experience like after your residents or your co-residents at the time decided you were kind of taking a little bit of a risk? What did they think? It was like crazy, risky? Well, why did they think it was an issue?
I think part of it, and I mean, I can't totally speak for them, but
Yeah.
I think part of it is a little bit of the fear, and there's a bit of the fear of the unknown,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's also the
That's
fear.
a big one.
That's a huge one.
Yeah.
Even the attendings I spoke to had never done locum, so they couldn't offer.
They couldn't recommend it.
anything.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other part is it can sound kind of scary because you're constantly adapting to a new environment and like, you know,
Yeah.
you never know what you're walking into. And I mean, these jobs are difficult for a reason, one
Yeah.
way or another.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're filling that need,
Yeah.
but they do come with their challenges.
What were your biggest fears before you started locums, about locums?
I think my fears were more or less kind of the same as any other resident,
Okay.
which is like, am I going to be
Yeah.
a good attending? I wasn't sure. I mean, I think it would have been harder had I not talked to you beforehand because I was able to get the advice of like, oh, you set up like your S Corp and you do this and you have to have your Dropbox or your Google.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think, well prepared going into it. If I had not had that advice going in, I may have even quit altogether.
So this would be like maybe like the idea of importance of having mentorship, right?
Yeah.
Like I think we have lots of mentorship. The whole medical school process up until and including residency is all mentorship, right? We're always learning from someone. We have professors, we have attendings that are guiding us through the practice, and it's like an apprenticeship in a sense. But when you go out into the real world after that, you don't have that mentorship anymore. You just have to kind of wing it or just do what everybody else is doing, right? And so I think one of the things that with the goal with this podcast and other stuff that we're doing is to really just help doctors just be educated about what's out there.
Yeah.
Because not enough people are doing it. And as a matter of fact, we were at AEM and some medical school students came over.
That's great.
Yeah, and they were just like, you know, do you offer mentorship? I was like, not yet, but you know, but the idea that, you know, the education, and they just want someone who can help them on the other side.
Right. Yeah.
Not just the medical school and the residency side, which is going to happen regardless, right? Someone who can help guide them. Okay, what are the best decisions to make financially, right? About your lifestyle, about your work outside, or your work rather, but also your life outside of work as well, right?
Right.
So yeah, anyways, that's I think an important factor that a lot of people just dismiss locums because they don't have that person to talk to. Because maybe if you didn't see us last year,
who knows?
maybe you would have gotten a W-2 job. Who knows, right?
Yeah, who knows?
And maybe we wouldn't be sitting here. But cool. So then after you decided to take the leap, what happened?
So it was mostly kind of trial by fire at that point. I mean, I jumped to it. It was very
You reached out to me early to look for a job, I remember.
I did, yeah. And part of it is just kind of searching for the job. I think, honestly, in my opinion at least, the hardest part of doing locums out of residency is just that you're not credentialed yet because it takes a while. And that
You mean certified? Board certified?
Right, exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So that I
limits
think
somewhat of your opportunities, correct?
a little bit, yeah.
I mean,
it's
not
still
ton,
out
but
there.
some. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still out there for sure. You'll find it.
And you know what I find interesting about that? The sites that limit you to do locums because you're not certified will accept a new resident who's not certified.
Full time, yeah.
It's like the only difference between you and that doctor is that you're a 1099 and they're W-2, but literally there's no other difference. You could be from the same program.
Yeah, it's very...
It's a very arbitrary
weird.
kind of like, you know, I mean, it's almost somewhat prejudiced.
Yeah,
It really is. I mean, you're right? Anyways, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so I think, I mean, in my opinion, that was kind of the hardest hurdle coming out of residency, was the certification portion. But other than that, I mean, I think it was kind of the same things. I mean, a lot of these positions I was doing single coverage or overnight, like straight out the gate, which is partially also like my personal sort of choice. But one way or another, everyone tells you the first year of your attending hood is, you know, where you're going to learn the most anyways.
You're going to learn the most.
So I think I just kind of like put that on steroids.
You just jumped into the deep end of the pool, like right out the gate. Like you're not just, you know, I get some residents, and look, I was like the opposite in a sense. Like I'm like, hey, I want like, you know, just to have that backup. I want to have attendings at night.
Right.
I want to make sure I'm never single covered. But you just went right in. That's awesome. But you know, it's not one or the other, right? I think there's so many ways to do this. I tell docs like, look, you don't have to commit to full-time locums.
Right.
Just one is to educate yourself and know about it, because then you'll know what the possibilities are. And then two, like experiment.
Yeah.
I mean, just work your like minimum required hours that you're contracted for at your full-time job. Pick up 3 or 4 shifts on the side, and then you'll start to see if, well, maybe it's just extra money on the side, which isn't, you know, it doesn't hurt. But it really is. I mean, it's almost so much prejudiced.
Yeah.
but maybe you'll start to see a pattern where you have more flexibility, you have more income from the few shifts that you are doing compared to what you're doing full time. That's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
Like I was working full time as an employee, and I was doing a week of locums. I was working a lot in the beginning, and then I realized, wait a minute, my week of locums, I make as much, if not more, than in my whole month of a full time job. So now I have to make a decision. How much do I value my time?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I don't think many doctors actually think, they don't go through that exercise of thinking what their time is worth.
Definitely. I mean, it's something I think that they kind of train us into from the beginning, from like med school to residency and all of it. Is,
Tell me more about that. What train us into what?
Train us into, I guess, not understanding what our worth really is.
Yeah.
I find, I mean, to some degree, I get the heroism in it, but the martyrism that kind of exists, it kind of hurts to see, because I think that some people kind of take it as a prideful point to use suffering as like a proxy for their value as a physician.
Yes.
Or even extrapolate it out to being
It's
like
kind of sadistic.
It's horrible.
It's actually not healthy.
Horrible.
It's not healthy in any way.
And that's just something that they kind of, I think, teach us early on, is like, if you're willing to drink the Kool-Aid, then, you know, you'll get satisfaction at the end of the day. And I just don't really think that's true. And I think that's part of what's contributing to our burnout in emergency medicine particularly. I don't think we should really put that martyrism up on a pedestal.
I mean, I think that's great. I liked how you said that. And I think that that's something that needs to change, because like the statistics recently, I was doing this, I wrote a LinkedIn post recently about one physician suicide a day in the US on average.
Yeah.
Right? We're losing about 300 plus doctors a year.
Yeah.
And burnout and the working conditions and environment has a big role to play in that. Emergency medicine is probably one of the most, well, it definitely has the highest burnout rate amongst physicians. And so for me, it's, because I work alongside colleagues, and obviously you do too, but like for me, it's personal, because like I would hate it if someone I was working with went down that path. Yeah. Thankfully, it hasn't happened yet, and I hope it never will. But like, if I can just show them that there is something different, like they can have their cake and eat it too, so to speak, or they can live a good life, make a good income,
right?
But also, you know, do the emergency medicine thing that they love, their passion, but also explore things outside of that they really enjoy and have some control over that.
Yeah.
I think one of the key things that physicians feel is trapped.
Very much so. I
like,
definitely felt
would you
it,
do?
sure.
Is that what you felt like?
Absolutely, yeah. That's why I crave the autonomy so bad. I think a lot of people assumed I went into it for the financial compensation,
which is nice.
Me, it is nice. It does make things easier.
Right.
But for me, it was more so like I mean, I've watched a lot of residents and attendings, and a lot of people like lose loved ones or go through these horrible crises, and then, you know, what are you gonna do? You like, now you have to have someone cover your shifts, and you know, you should have the ability to put your priorities first, whether that's family or something else, when you need to. And it's just so hard to do that when you're essentially trapped, is what it feels like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's kind of by design in a sense. I mean, I don't know, you know, how the corporate healthcare system as it is, it's definitely not designed to favor the practitioners or the nurses that we work with, which I feel even worse for. In the ER, I always tell the nurses, I'm like, you should be making minimum double what you're making, minimum.
Yeah, I know.
Because the amount of BS that they have to go through, and you couldn't pay me enough to do that.
I tell them that all the time.
So I'm always extra nice, even if someone's having a hard day, you know, and a tough day, and might be a little, you know, snappish with me. Yeah. I let it go because I know that they're dealing with a lot of crazy stuff. But anyways, anything that you wanted to bring up?
No, I'm really happy to be able to talk about it.
How's your experience been? Like, tell me, the last, 9 months now? You've been a locum doctor. Yeah. Tell me the good, the bad, the ugly. Like, what have been your biggest challenges? Let's start with that.
Biggest challenges? It's definitely having to adapt super quickly. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm so new. I don't have the luxury of having experience behind me. Right. So everything is new. Right. And so everything kind of feels like a challenge. So it's like, oh, a new EMR system, or like, I don't know where the closest children's hospital is. And there's just the first that you have out of residency. Like, people are asking me, like, do I fly this person? Do I do? I'm like, we're about to learn real quick then together. So that I think is the hardest. I think it's hardest for anybody, but it's definitely exaggerated when you're in locums, because you just don't have the buffer at all.
I always tell, as a matter of fact, Doc came today to me, and she was asking me about like that. I'm like, look, it takes 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It takes about 2 weeks for you to get comfortable with the site, and obviously you'll still learn some additional things along the way. But you get those butterflies when you kind of first start, right? You're kind of
Always.
like you're the new person there. Everyone's kind of watching you.
Yeah.
And but you know, as long as you're showing that you're there to like work
Yeah.
and help, right?
Yeah.
And I think I found in my experience, the staff have been amazing.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
yeah.
the nursing staff and like even the attendings, they're just like, oh, thank you for coming, like, you know, because they know that you kind of are, you know,
Helping
coming
out,
and helping
yeah.
them out, right? And so once if you can get over those butterflies, and there's a myth in emergency, I guess in locums in general, that you have to move around a lot. There's an idea that, you know, you have to just kind of keep hopping around from hospital to hospital, and
Right.
although that is sometimes true, like I found in my
Yeah.
experience, I've worked about now 10 years of locums full time.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked at sites for years. The
Yeah.
current site that I'm working at, I've been there for 6 years
Yeah.
as a locum. Like I've been there longer than like about 90% of their full timers.
Right.
Right. So like a lot of the new docs that they hire come to me and ask me stuff because like I'm like one of their senior
Right.
doctors there. So I think that, and then several of our sites that we staff actually, the doctors are there for
Yeah.
years.
I'm not surprised.
And I'll tell you why I think it is, because look, there's a supply demand tension, right? We don't have enough emergency physicians for the
Right.
number of doctors that are needed. And also what I've noticed the trend is that the sites that are like more rural, people don't want to live there.
No.
They might think they want to live there out of residency. Maybe they're like, okay, well, they have a nice pay, bonus or whatever.
Right.
So they go out there for a couple of years, then they realize, I don't want to be here anymore. Like
Right.
this place sucks, right? And so then they move out, and guess what? That place needs help. It's not because that place is a dumpster fire,
Right.
which is a misconception people have. Like,
Yeah.
oh, all locum sites are like dumpster fires, and you shouldn't work there because you're just going to be unsafe and it's going to be malpractice risk and all that.
Right.
No, they're actually a very good functioning hospital, but it's just that they're in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
and no one wants to go there. But
Yep.
but someone will go there if they pay them a lot to spend 5 nights there and then go home,
Yeah.
right? Somewhere else.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the ideas that people have about locums that I think is inaccurate. So your biggest challenge is kind of just, I guess, adapting to new places and just kind of, have you found, how long did it take you on average to kind of just get familiar? You've worked at, I think, one site right now, no, a couple of sites.
A couple sites. It depends on, I guess, how many shifts I do each month. I'd say like within the third, whatever the third sort of
Sort of stretch of shifts.
chunk of shifts, that I do.
Yeah,
Part of it is also depending on how far apart they're spaced out.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It helps to do a bunch in a row,
Yes, yeah.
in the beginning especially. So at least 4 or 5 shifts in a row,
Yep.
not just like one or
Yep.
two, and then wait like another month or two to go back,
Right.
because you're going to forget everything that you did.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
and I've had that happen to me once, and I was like, oh, let's not do that again, right?
not
Because
a
then you have
good
to learn
idea.
again, and then you're just like,
Yeah.
and then you feel like bad because they probably think like, why don't you know this stuff? But
Right.
it was a while since you last came, and so, you know, it's that's a good thing to point out. I think if you're doing locums, it's good to kind of just stack up like maybe 4 or 5 shifts in a row,
Yeah.
and then kind of make sure you don't wait too long to come back.
Right.
You know, maybe come back in a couple of weeks. What has been like your biggest kind of I don't know, thing that you've gained or enjoyed about locum tenens and just really value about it?
I guess they kind of go hand in hand. I mean, I was always someone who really enjoyed traveling. And so even though a lot of these places are like kind of geographically in these areas that everyone's like, oh, that
Yeah.
exists, I always get excited because there's
Yeah.
always something to
Something.
discover. You know,
Yeah.
there's people, there's places. And so I kind of get excited to be able to explore a new place.
Yeah.
And also just meeting new people. I like meeting new people all the time. So, you know, whether it's in the hospital, outside the hospital, that I think has been probably one of the most enjoyable parts for me. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's been awesome too. Like for me, I've been out to some sites that I was like, before I went there, I'm like,
Yeah.
do I really want to go to this place and all that? And I kind of have all these preconceived notions. I remember I went to this one site in like one of the remotest parts in Pennsylvania. It's a town called Coudersport. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like in the middle of nowhere, a critical access hospital, and like 4 hours from my house. And so I remember driving up there in the middle of a thunderstorm. And it was like so bad I had to pull over. I'm like, dude, I don't know if I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Anyways, finally made it there. And I, not again expecting a warm welcome, just, demographically maybe a little bit different than what I'm used to seeing or what they're used to seeing as a doc. So I get there and like, it's just the nicest people. Both the nurses, the patients, super like, expressing a lot of gratitude and thankful and all this. So I'm like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. I actually enjoyed going there.
I know.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it helps kind of break some of those barriers that we have about beliefs that we have. It actually kind of helps you kind of expand outside of that. That's been my experience. And
Totally.
looks like yours as
Absolutely.
well, right?
Yeah. I love the sense of community, and you definitely feel it there in those type of places.
Yeah. Because I mean, you have to rely on each other a little bit more, right? Because there's no one else there. Awesome. Well, you said the autonomy is one of the things that you found to be the most important thing. Like, why is that something important to you?
You know, the funny thing is, I was thinking about when I started all this, which if we really want to stretch back, would be like, I guess college, because you have to decide, am I going to go pre-med or not,
True.
which takes like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, wow, I started college when I was 17, and 17-year-old Padita had to decide the future of her entire career in life.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It really is.
Believe it or not, I was not prepared for that decision at 17.
Yeah.
So I think about the time, now I'm 32, and how much my life has changed, my priorities have changed, just the general situations I've been in. And I needed something that was going to be just as adaptable as kind of the unexpected changes in my life were going to be. And that's kind of where the autonomy of locums came in. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next year, but I know I'm put myself in a position where no matter what happens, I have a way of working with it that is going to make sure that I feel satisfied and at peace with my sort of life and decisions altogether.
What do you like? What is it that is there stuff outside of medicine that you like to do that you want this flexibility for? Because like I think a lot of doctors, the problem is that they kind of pigeonhole themselves into identifying as a doctor.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the most satisfying thing. Now I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. Everybody's obviously you can do whatever you want, but if that's what you're basing your identity off of, and that's where you find like your satisfaction and meaning from, it can be problematic when the system is kind of stacked up against you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of doctors are finding now, and that's why a lot of them are depressed and a lot of committing suicide.
Yeah.
And just like not having control over their destiny.
Yeah.
Or any control outside of like they just feel like they just can't do anything, right? You feel like you're in a straitjacket. I remember when I was in my first job out of residency, great position. Like I loved the staff that I worked with. It was an employed position. I was the director, like a nursing staff. Everyone was very welcoming, and I felt really supported. But I remember thinking like, okay, I looked around me, and everyone there was like had been there for 5, 10, 15 years, whatever. And I thought to myself, if I don't make some changes now, I'm going to be in the same position as everybody else is. That's okay, but do I want that for me? Right? It's not like I'm not judging anybody else who's making that decision. That's maybe they're happier. That's great. But do I want that? No. I wanted a different life. And I didn't know what that really looked like.
Right.
But I knew it wasn't that.
Yeah.
Right? And so for me, I had to kind of like divorce myself from like just being comfortable.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you
yes,
know, we
exactly.
we're very much like into comfort and like we want everything done for us because it has been.
Right.
They've been literally telling us everything the whole time. Oh, like, you know, okay, this is when your exam is. This is when you got to take this. This is when you got to do this. You got to take step 1 now. You got like everything is laid out for you.
Yep.
Right. And we kind of almost fall into that trap of like, okay, well, let's just go on autopilot even after that. Right?
Totally.
I think not enough doctors have the time to really be like take account of themselves and be like, well, let me think critically about what is it that I want.
Right. I mean, it makes sense because a lot of it's so difficult that it's almost like you're in just survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, like
you're not
thinking about
outside of that.
Stuff. Yeah.
That's true.
So
that's a good point.
That's a very good point. I felt definitely during the training process. And I do remember I was always surrounded by people who, I mean, they were fantastic at what they did and they were great physicians, but they were kind of more saturated in the emergency medicine world, more so than I was. And I felt like there was something wrong with me the whole time. Like, I wasn't going to be as good of a physician or like. Tell
me more.
You know.
What do you mean by that? Like, why did you feel like they were kind of more identifying as with emergency medicine and kind of like that was kind of like their life passion and maybe that's what they defined themselves by and you didn't necessarily and you felt maybe you were wrong? Is that? Tell me more.
I mean, I felt like because my identity was not dominated by emergency medicine or medicine in general, that it meant that I didn't deserve the position I have that I've worked so hard for.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a tough thing to kind of work through.
It's almost like if you're not all in,
right,
like completely, then you feel guilty.
But that mentality is what gets rewarded in
medicine in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually a very good point.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of traps us into like just thinking, well, this is it.
Yeah.
Like why should I even look for something now? But that's actually a great point.
Yeah. I one thing I did not anticipate, because I always thought like, okay, I knew I was going to do locums out of residency. So I was like, oh, I'm going to have all this time now. I can do this, I can do that, I can do whatever I want. And I actually found myself initially very paralyzed because I was so singularly focused on medicine for so long. I had no sense of identity anymore. And I was like, oh no, we got to go through this whole rediscovery process.
It's
again.
amazing though, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
please speak to more of that, because I like to share my part of that as well, but I want to hear more about it. Like, what did you experience when you had that sort of time now?
Yeah.
Right? And sort of freedom, and I would say.
Right.
More so than the time, it's like the freedom to actually like, oh wow, like I've been doing this thing for so long and now that's kind of done. Tell me more about that journey.
I mean, I used to, a lot of the time when I was in my training process, I kept thinking back like, oh wow, I used to love doing this. I used to be so good at that. I was like, you know, knew these languages. I played these instruments. I traveled all over the place. And I just really started building a resentment that that wasn't a part of my life anymore. And then once I finally had the opportunity.
Quite a long period of time.
For a very long time.
10 plus years, right?
At least.
Yeah.
And once I had the time, I was like, wow, do I still enjoy these things? Is there something else that I enjoy?
Because you're a different person now.
Totally different person.
And you're like, you know, 10 years have passed by. And so like you said, ideas change, priorities change, interests change. But you don't know who you are anymore.
I don't. And, you know, you had kind of like touched upon it of a lot of our path is put ahead of us, but it's all spoken about in like years. It's always like, oh, in 1 year, in 4 years, in 10 years. And I thought to myself, I was like, that just feels like such a disservice to the value of time, which is the only thing we'd like have that we can't ever get back or replenish. And so when I came out of residency, I was like, wow, I really want to value time the right way now. But then you think, oh God, how am I going to do that? Like, how do I
use my free time now,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
I mean, and I think that's a key point as well, is like, to me, if there was nothing else of value from, even if the salary was slightly lower for locums,
right?
The fact that it gave you back my time, that was enough.
That was it, yeah.
Right, and then the icing, of course, and it's a nice icing, is the salary's higher and you have complete control and things like that. But like, the ability to just structure the time in a way that you find is best for you.
Yeah.
I always tell doctors, it's like with locums, you get to you make your work, your life schedule, and you schedule your work around that. Yeah. Right. You sprinkle in work whenever you want. After you've done all your life events, like you want to travel, you want to go to your kids' soccer games, whatever it is. And then, but as a W-2, it's flipped. You're given your schedule, and you have to try to fit in whatever you can from your personal life, right? Right. And so flipping this model on its head, to me, has been a game changer. Yeah. And that process of self-discovery, I wasn't sure if I was the only one that went through it. Because I went through a similar process. I'm like, well, who am I now? Right. Like I've just been in this singular sort of mode, which is like survival, executing, just trying to, advance my medical degree and just become competent and go out to be a good attending. And then when you graduate, you're like, okay, well, you reach the mountaintop, but then you're like, now what?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
okay, this is what I was kind of like, this was my goal for like so long. So what are some things that you do now to like, try to make use of your time? Or what would you like to do with your time that you think would be valuable to help, like, kind of progress you in whichever way?
I think, so initially a lot of it was reconnecting with people that I didn't have the time to connect with, whether it's family, friends,
loved ones. Yeah.
People are like, oh, you're alive. I'm like,
yeah, I'm back.
I made it, I know. So it was great because I was so scared. I was like, oh, I haven't talked to this person in years. Yeah. And nope, everyone just opens up their arms and they welcome you back.
They missed you.
Yeah, and it was just so heartwarming to know that, those people were still there and waiting. And so that was like my first priority out of residency, was reconnecting with the people I cared about. And then after that, a lot of it, I think, was going back to the things I used to enjoy to see how I enjoyed it. So travel, I used to do a lot of horseback riding back in the day. And so it was kind of going back to those. Like, how do I feel about it? Yeah. And then in the long term, part of the reason I went to locums is I want to build a career outside of medicine, and I have the opportunity to do that. Do I know what that is now? No, but I have the opportunity to do it. So
right. What would you tell? You said you have some residents that are here now. Yeah. That are friends of yours. Like, what would you tell them after this, experience of you? It's almost like your first year of locums. Now it's almost done, and like if they're still on the fence. Like, they're still like, hey, I don't know, I'm a little afraid about this. I don't know, how am I going to set up my benefits or anything else like that. Right. What would you tell them about this experience? Like, to show them, like, being that mentor for them. Right. What would be some advice that you'd give them?
I think the first and foremost advice is that you can do it. Like, I think a big part is that they think, I could never do that. Yeah. I hear that so much. And you absolutely can. The only person who is telling you can't is yourself, essentially. not I don't know anyone who would really come up to you and be like, no, you can't do that.
Right.
That would be my first thing. And then also just to sit down and like really think about what is most important to you. And
do you think people do that a lot? Or do you think that in your experience, I know that during training and residency, we don't have time to think about those things, right? And you're still kind of in your first year. My experience, I think that doctors, because once they get out of residency, it just begins. So they might have a family, or they might want to start a family soon after that. Then they buy the house, and then they get the car, and then, and then whatever. Then they have, it's just like every day looks like every week, looks like every month, looks like every year.
Yeah.
And it's just on autopilot.
Yep.
Like no one takes stock of the situation. Like, okay, well, this is good life,
right.
By all measures. I mean, I'm not hating on that, but like, is this okay for the next 20 years?
Right.
Like, is this what I want from my life on this earth for the next 20 years? Like, do I want to look back and be proud of what I did? Or will I be proud of what I did?
Yeah.
Or will I have regret?
Right.
So if the answer is you're going to have regret, then what are you doing to change it?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, literally,
like you have to kind of start being like responsible now for yourself, right? You've outsourced responsibility in a sense,
sure, yeah.
to someone else, like the medical school and the residency program. Like, okay, you're responsible for training me. Now you have to take responsibility. Okay, now that I'm done, I got to figure out what I want in life.
Yeah.
And that process, I think, is really important. And do you think that locums allowed you to kind of give you or allowed you the time to think through that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
How so? Like, why is it that locums has helped you? And why do you think maybe a W-2 job would have hindered that in your experience?
I mean, for me, I can take whatever time it is. I mean, that's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah.
But, if I needed a day, a week, a month, like whatever it was, I could schedule around that and make sure I took the necessary time.
Yeah.
With the W-2, I knew right off the bat that essentially I was going to have to go straight into work mode.
Yeah.
And I know what I'm like when I'm in work mode, which is, autopilot. And I didn't want to live my life on autopilot.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate. I took a decent amount of time off after residency for sure, to think through all that stuff. But literally, like, writing down what was important to me was what really put it in perspective for me when I was deciding.
So you wrote these things down?
Oh, yeah.
On like a piece of paper or on your laptop or something? Yeah.
I mean, it gets super overwhelming when it's just kind of floating around in your head.
Yeah.
And so during residency, when I was almost like kind of semi-panicking over like, oh my God, everyone else is getting a job and I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I just got to like sit down and figure out like why I'm like having this sort of hurdle.
This anxiety about this whole process. And
it's because I was trying to fit into what we were told
Everybody
is the
wants you to do,
traditional
right.
way of going things. And I was like, that's just not going to work for me. And I know it's not going to work for me. I'm tired of having to make the things that are expected work for me instead of the other way around.
It's the medical matrix, right? We talked about this earlier. Like, I really believe that you're indoctrinated into the matrix.
Yeah.
From med school, even undergrad actually, but into med school, residency, and then as an attending.
Yeah.
There'll be very few people who kind of feel that desire like Neo did to like break free from the matrix.
Yeah.
And then you need a mentor. Neo wasn't going to get out of the matrix without Morpheus.
No.
Right?
It's
Morpheus
hard.
had to show him that he's capable.
Right. Because it's so different.
Because you don't think, because it's just like, well, I can't do it. A lot of your people that you're familiar, friends and stuff, will like, I can't do it. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
But like, you need to show them like, okay, well, it's done. You can do it.
Yeah.
Like, you have the power, Neo.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah. They don't, I think, feel as empowered as they really are.
Yeah.
So.
And they've done amazing things. And that's what kind of like blows my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Like, being a doctor is, I mean, I don't think we value ourselves even as doctors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just like the work that we actually do is mind-blowing. I think if anybody from the outside world would just walk with us for a day, they'd be like, well, you guys are crazy. Like, the fact that you do this is amazing. I can't, right? Like, just like one day.
Oh, yeah.
And like, we just kind of nonchalantly, it's like whatever about it, just because it's just part of what we do.
Used to, yeah.
It's just like, but like, just really kind of taking stock, okay, I have a very important, valuable skill. That's great. And I'm helping people. Okay, well, how do I kind of leverage my ability to be very high performing,
right,
dedicated,
right,
for long periods of time? I mean, entrepreneurship is just about that, really.
Yeah.
It's just being like, motivated and then dedicated to a single thing without seeing any real benefit for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Which is med school and residency.
Essentially,
I mean, you're just getting beat up for like 7, 8 years.
Very long time,
right?
yeah.
For a long time without really seeing much in return.
Yeah.
And so doctors have the skill set and the, I would say the disposition already built into them. Do you think a lot of them kind of just tap out once residency is over, and you're like, you know what, I'm done, and I don't really want to have to do that again. Like, I think that's one of the things that people also resist. They're just like, well, it takes a lot of effort to kind of now take a next step and maybe try to build another business outside of that. There's risk involved, of course. Anything that you invest in will be risky. Do you think that's something that you've noticed, that people are just kind of like, all right, dude, I'm done. I'm just tired. I just want to live my life on autopilot. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's what they want. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what, brings some happiness in life. I think, we get such little exposure to anything outside of medicine. It's not even, I don't even think we really incorporate it into our concept of the world, really. And so, you're really having to put yourself out there into uncomfortable zones, not your comfort zone of medicine, and see what the world has to offer and what you have to offer the world. And I just, we're just not taught that way. That's not our strategic type of thinking that we do. Yeah,
we're more like, I think our thinking is more like in the box thinking, algorithmic. Okay, if this happens and this, if the patient's like coding, then you give them this every 2 minutes, whatever it is. There's like a process and protocol that we think about, and we're very good at that. We're like experts at that. But anything outside of that, I think we have a hard time of just really kind of conceptualizing, strategizing, thinking outside of like, okay, like what do I want long term, things like that. So one of my hopes is that doctors will do that more, right? Early on, ideally.
I think it'll make them better doctors too.
How so?
I mean, something I noticed, in residency, it was really tough. Like, I was getting pretty burnt out in residency for sure. And at a certain point I was thinking, like, do I even like this? Do I even like emergency medicine? Do I want to be an ER doctor? And then once I left and I was able to take the time I needed, when I did go to work, I was like, oh no, I do actually enjoy this, but I couldn't see that because of it.
Thank you for pointing that out, because that's been my experience as well. Like the less I work, the more I enjoy it. What I mean is that not like one shift a month, but I mean like going from say 140 hours a month to working 80. I actually look forward to going to work now. Because I enjoy it. I actually do enjoy this stuff. But you're right. I had a similar feeling in residency. Just like it was like this resentment that you said, right? Because you've been cut off from the rest of your life and the things that you enjoyed for so long. You build this kind of like resentment towards it, and then you're like, well, it's just very interesting that you also mentioned you had a similar thing. Awesome. Well, I think any other thoughts, any comments, anything else you want to say about your experience that you want to share with the audience? I know that this is a very valuable kind of conversation, I think, for people to kind of just see someone who just graduated, right? Who kind of went out and took a leap of faith. To me, people said, hey, this is it's kind of like a risky thing. Like, are you sure? I'm like, how's it risky? I have jobs. I have more opportunities for jobs than you do, because you're stuck in a job, right? I mean, you can't really, you're in a box. So
that's it.
It's like you're diversifying risk, and you have the ability to kind of just work again on your own terms. Is there anything else you would like to share with the audience that you think would be just some lasting parting advice for any new resident, for example, or medical student who's looking at this and kind of maybe feeling burnt out a little bit and feeling like, hey, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Like, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to just look outside the box. It's totally okay. It doesn't mean that you're a bad student or a bad resident or there's anything wrong with it. Exploration is always something that I encourage for people. I would love to see people in like straight out of residency in my position, like kind of come into our field. It would make me really happy to see that. So hopefully I'll be able to do that. I think people should also just know you have so much to offer. You have much more to offer than you think you do. So don't undervalue yourself.
That's a big part of doctors, I feel like, though. Like, even just like I'll see academic docs take like, making 178, 180 an hour. I'm just like, why are you doing that?
Right.
Like, you're working 150 hours a month still. You're working 16 shifts, maybe like 8-hour shifts. But why are you not valuing yourself? Right. Like, which part of all this meant that you need to value yourself, or undervalue yourself? But I guess part of it's like kind of like what you said. It's kind of like the expectation, right? You just kind of work for free for so long. So now you don't know how to even ask for more.
Right.
Because you work for free.
Yep. It's not going to make you a worse doctor or a worse person. It's totally okay to say, nope, I'm actually a very valuable person, and I feel like I should be treated as such.
Well, awesome. That's great advice. Dr. Ghorbani, thank you for joining the podcast. We'll see you next time.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.